Good day, everyone. My name is Amhala Moso, and I'm here with my colleagues being CK Larona, Privilege Nancy, and Precious, and we will be covering the stages in research writing. The stages include the topic, the introduction, the research problem, objectives, hypothesis, literature review, research design, conclusion, discussion, and recommendation. I will be covering the research topic and the introduction. The research topic. This is what this research is intending to investigate. It must be clear, focused, and relevant. Moving on to the introduction. This is the reader's first impression of the work. It explains to them what the study is really about. Moving on to what happens in the introduction. It states the primary research question or problem to be addressed. It clearly defines the objectives and aims of the study and what it seeks to discover and solve. A strong introduction connects the topic to previous related researches, showing how the issue links to prior findings. It explains why the topic is interesting. Moving on to the importance of introduction. It guides the flow of the whole paper. It also provides the need for background of the reader. It builds the interest by explaining the values of the study. That will be all, and I'll be handing over to Precious.
So I'll be taking you through the research problem and the objectives of the research. First of all, the research problem. A research problem is a clear, concise, and specific statement that describes the issue that the research project addresses. So this is basically a straight to the point description of the challenge the researcher is trying to solve or find solutions to. Moving on to the components of the research problem. Firstly, the problem statement. This is a clear and straight to the point description of the issue of question the researcher wants to study. So here, the researcher generally describes thoroughly what he or she wishes to address. Moving on to the context or background. It is a short note of what the research is all about or how come the problem exists. So here the researcher basically looks at the root cause of the problem. Moving on to rationalization. This is why this problem matters or why it is important or worth investigating. So here the researcher gives just a justification of why he or she is studying that problem, or gives a valid reason of why the study is worth investigating. Lastly, the questions or objectives. This is what the researcher wants to find out or achieve with their research. Moving on to the importance of the research problem. The research problem is a vital step in a research process as it serves as a foundation for the process. This research problem is where you get your why. Without it, the research is bound to fail. So basically, without a research problem, the whole research is doomed. Now that you have said it is the foundation, this means that it guides the research process, which means that a research problem is the roadmap for the whole research process. And also it prevents aimlessness. That means it prevents wandering, or it helps the researcher to focus on the main point in the study. Moving on to the objectives of the research. So the objectives should not be passive, but rather show direct action which will indicate how the specific research question will be answered. So by being direct, it means that it should clearly state what the researcher is trying to achieve. For example, by the use of verbs like to find out or to investigate. Moving on to the importance of the objectives. They are important because they help to plan the procedures and arrangement of the study. So this keeps the study focused. They contribute to the decision making of how many people are needed in the study and finding out the capability and strength of the study. And also they make your research easy to understand for others. Lastly, research objectives help measure your progress. Thank you. I'll hand over to CK.
I'll be taking you through the hypothesis. A hypothesis is a testable statement predicting the relationship between two or more variables. It means that you make an educated guess about what you think might happen in your research. Moving on to the roles of hypothesis in research writing. It provides a foundation for the research design. It simply means that without a hypothesis, your research may lack direction. It simply helps the research to stay focused. A hypothesis also helps to guide the formulation of research questions and objectives. It offers a basis for testing and validation. By testing a hypothesis, which means you provide information of what we know, whether you prove it or not. It also contributes to the body of your academic knowledge. And then I'll go to the types of hypothesis. We have the null hypothesis, where there is no relationship between the variables. And we have the alternative hypothesis. There is a relationship between the variables that are going to be tested. I'll be handing over to my colleague, Privilege.
I'll be taking you through the literature review. A literature review is a summary and a critical appraisal of what has been already studied on a specific issue. Key aims of a literature review. Locate your study. A literature review helps a researcher to know where his or her work fits in. Identify gaps or unresolved questions. A literature review helps a researcher to know those unresolved problems that other researchers left. Avoid duplication of effort. A literature review helps a researcher to avoid repeating work or repeating other researchers' work. What it includes: summaries of relevant studies. A literature review contains the summaries of relevant studies made by other researchers on that specific topic. Comparison between result or perspective. Critical analysis, which includes strengths and weaknesses. Theme or trends in a research. Of a literature review. First, it starts with an introduction, an explanation of what the review is about. Then step 2 is thematic or body, logically structured discussion of literature. Then lastly, the conclusion, the integration of findings and areas of research. I'll be handing over to Laro. Thank you.
I'll be taking you through the research design. Research design is the blueprint of a research study. What this basically means is that a research study is the overall plan that guides how a research study should be carried out to ensure a reliable and systematic process. We have the components of research design. There are 4 components of research design that researchers use to guide their research. Firstly, we have the types of research design. We have the descriptive research design. This is the observation and the recording of events and actions done by people without manipulating any variables. Secondly, we have the approaches to research. We have the quantitative approach. This is the analysis of theories and the relationship between variables. Thirdly, we have the data collection methods. We have the survey. The survey is done by collecting numerical data from people. And lastly, we have sampling. We have probability sampling. This is selecting random participants from a whole specific population. Moving on to the importance of research design. It boosts efficiency. What this basically means is that more work is done in less time, hence saving time. Thirdly, it makes the research study clear. This reduces confusion, hence increasing productivity in a research study. And lastly, it ensures right theory testing. A research study ensures that the methods used in a research study align with the hypothesis. Next, I'll be taking you through the discussion section. The discussion section is where research results are examined. Discussion is the analysis and the explanation of research results. What is the purpose of the discussion section? Firstly, it explains the correlation between results and hypothesis. It explains how research results support or are against the hypothesis. Secondly, it shows how the findings affect current ideas. It points out how findings affect existing ideas and how it can be applied to real-life situations. Thirdly, it discusses the weaknesses of the research. These are the things the researcher did wrongly throughout the research that has affected the results. What the discussion section covers. Firstly, it mentions research problem and hypothesis. Secondly, it summarizes key results. These are the research results that are significant. Number 3, it analyzes results. Number 4, acknowledgement of obstacles. Number 5, suggestions. These are proposed ideas that future researchers can use for their research studies. Why the discussion section matters. Firstly, it explains the importance of the research findings. Secondly, it brings together all the parts of the paper. This provides a clear conclusion for the research. And finally, it acknowledges the limitations of the research. This helps the researcher to look for alternative solutions that future researchers can use to guide them throughout their studies. And that will be all. I'll be handing over to Nancy.
So I will be taking you through the conclusion and the recommendations. Firstly, a conclusion of a research is a summary of your writing and is basically an overview of your research work. So you take a conclusion as your last chance as the researcher to remind the readers what your research was all about and why is it important. Then your conclusion has to state the problem that was addressed in the research. So you briefly state the main idea of your research paper. Then you summarize your overall arguments and findings. This is whereby you just state a brief summary of the main points and then the results as well. Moving on, a conclusion has to suggest the key takeaways from your paper. This is a point where you as the researcher, you indicate what is more important and what the reader should not forget about your research. How to build a strong conclusion. First thing, you restate the problem. You indicate the main idea of your research. Then you sum up the paper. That is highlighting the key points of your research. Discussion of the implications. This is basically where you'll be, as a researcher, you'll be stating why your research is important and how it can be used in real life situations. Moving on, I'll be taking you through the recommendations. So, these are the suggestions that outline the solution to the problem that was being addressed or studied in the research. It should have a target audience. Your recommendations should indicate who exactly they are for. For example, the government should. It indicates that these recommendations are for the government. The recommendations should have topics or methods for future research. This is basically to help the upcoming researchers to pick or to continue where you left your research and continue further researching. They should show how future researchers can overcome the limitations. Usually when you are doing a research, there has to be limitations that you encounter. And you have to indicate in your recommendations what the future researchers should do as a way of overcoming those limitations. Then a good recommendation must follow the SMART model. Then we have the S, which stands for specific. Your recommendations have to be straight to the point. They have to be measurable, which means you should be able to track the progress of your recommendations. They should be achievable. You have to recommend something which is realistic and could be easily implemented. They should be relevant. That is, they should be directly aligned with your research. And lastly, your recommendations have to have a time bound. This is the duration or the time frame upon which the actions that are to be put in place have to be completed.
In conclusion, research design is not just a process, but it's a skill that develops discipline, clarity, and insight. We hope our presentation has increased your understanding and your knowledge about research writing. Thank you.